The rain fell steadily over Portland that afternoon, drumming against the windows in a soft, constant rhythm. Emma Thompson sat on the couch, her hands busy arranging old photo albums she had pulled from the attic. It was one of those quiet, gray days when the world outside seemed to pause, and all she could hear was the patter of water and the occasional rumble of thunder. She liked days like this. Sometimes they gave her time to think, to remember, to feel without the constant interruptions of life. But today, her thoughts were restless. Ever since she had married Michael, her life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. Michael's son, Jason, had moved in with them after his mother relocated for work overseas. Jason was 20, polite, reserved, the kind of young man who seemed to carry a quiet weight on his shoulders. Emma had tried to be friendly, welcoming, and warm, but their relationship was always a careful balance. They weren't exactly family yet, not completely. And yet there were moments fleeting, small, that made her heart tighten unexpectedly. That afternoon, as she flipped through the albums, she heard the soft click of the hallway door opening. Jason stepped in, shaking off the rain from his jacket. Hair was damp, sticking slightly to his forehead. And he had that hesitant look Emma had come to recognize. A mix of curiosity, uncertainty, and something else she couldn't quite name. "Hey," he said softly, glancing at her. "Are you busy?" Emma looked up, startled, but smiled warmly. "Just going through some old photos. Want to see?" He paused, then shook his head. "Actually, I was thinking of something else. I found some old videos of you and Dad traveling. Thought maybe we could watch them together." His voice was careful, almost nervous, as if he weren't sure it was okay to ask. Emma blinked, surprised. She had known he was curious about Michael's past, but there was something different in the way he asked this. It wasn't just curiosity. There was a quiet eagerness in his eyes, a subtle vulnerability. And oddly enough, she felt her heart respond. She had never admitted it to anyone, not even herself, but the thought of sharing a personal moment with Jason, just the two of them, made her pulse quicken. "Sure, Jason," she said softly, surprising herself with her calm tone. "Let's watch them." They moved to the living room together. The couch was large and comfortable, and they sat a little distance apart at first, careful to respect boundaries. Emma placed the first DVD into the player, and the screen lit up with images from years ago. Michael laughing in a foreign street, Emma with her hair tied up, smiling at the camera, scenes from vacations they had taken before Jason had even been born. Jason's laughter filled the room at small, silly moments. He pointed at a photo on the screen where Emma had worn an outrageous sun hat. Emma, you look so funny here," he said, smiling shyly. Emma laughed, a soft melodic sound that seemed to warm the chilly room as the videos continued. They began talking more openly. Jason shared little details about his life, things he hadn't said before. The loneliness he felt when his mother was away, his struggles at college, the way he sometimes wished for someone to really understand him. Emma listened, genuinely interested, giving him her full attention. She shared some stories too, of travels, small regrets, funny mistakes. There was laughter, but also a quiet intimacy growing, one that neither could deny. The rain outside drummed on, a steady accompaniment to the growing closeness in the room. Emma felt herself becoming more aware of Jason, the way he shifted on the couch, the subtle gestures he made, the way his eyes sometimes lingered on her for a fraction longer than necessary. She caught herself noticing the curve of his jaw, the slight nervousness in his smile, and a warmth surged through her chest that she hadn't expected. She told herself to ignore it, to focus on the videos, but it was impossible. Jason, too, seemed aware of the shift. There was a tension in the room now, gentle but undeniable. When he leaned forward to point at something on the screen, their hands brushed. A spark of electricity ran through Emma's body, sudden and startling. She froze for a moment, heart hammering, but he didn't pull away either. Instead, he gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. like he was daring her to acknowledge what they both felt but couldn't name. They continued watching in a quiet, shared focus, the unspoken feelings swirling between them like the storm outside. Each laugh, each glance, each brush of hands made Emma's pulse quicken. She reminded herself he was her stepson. She was married to his father. Yet, in this moment, those rules felt distant, almost irrelevant. Jason's voice broke the silence, hesitant but earnest. "It's really nice. Watching this with you, I never got to see Dad like this. Or you like this." Emma swallowed, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "I'm glad you asked to watch it," she said softly. "I enjoy spending time with you too." For a few minutes, neither spoke. They just sat together, sharing the quiet comfort of the living room, the flickering images on the screen, and the sound of rain against the windows. Emma's mind raced, her thoughts a mix of guilt, longing, and curiosity. She wondered if Jason felt the same tension, the same pull that she did, or if it was all in her imagination. Then Jason shifted again, moving slightly closer. Their knees touched accidentally, a small electric contact that made Emma's stomach flutter. She looked at him, and for a moment, their eyes locked, and she felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of them. There was a question in his gaze, unspoken but clear. Did she feel it too? Emma's breath caught. She felt the heat of attraction, a strange and confusing desire that she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. Her heart pounded as she realized that she did feel it. Not just curiosity or affection, but a genuine, subtle longing that surprised her. She had never imagined this could happen, not with Jason, not with someone so closely tied to her family. The video ended, the screen going dark, leaving the room quiet except for the rain. Jason hesitated, then spoke in a low, almost shy voice. "Do you want to see more? The rest of it?" Emma felt her pulse quicken. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the nervous anticipation in his eyes. She realized that somehow she wanted the same thing. She wanted to keep sharing this private, intimate moment, to feel this closeness that had grown between them tonight. Her hand twitched slightly as she reached for the remote, her mind spinning. "Yes," she said softly, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I think I do." Jason's face lit up with a small, relieved smile. He pressed play again, and the images flickered to life. But this time, Emma felt different. She wasn't just watching the videos, she was acutely aware of Jason beside her. The warmth of his presence, the subtle brush of hands, the way his shoulder occasionally touched hers. It was electric, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. The rest of the evening passed in a quiet, tense harmony. They laughed softly, teased each other lightly, and shared stories and memories that neither had dared to speak aloud before. Every glance, every smile, every accidental touch carried a weight of emotion, an intensity that was almost tangible. Emma could feel the subtle pull of connection, a delicate thread linking them in a way that went beyond normal family boundaries. Outside, the storm began to ease, the rain slowing to a gentle drizzle. Inside, the living room was warm, filled with the soft light from the TV and the quiet hum of shared intimacy. Emma felt a strange mixture of guilt and joy, nervousness and comfort. She reminded herself constantly. He was her stepson, she was married to Michael, and yet, the feelings were undeniable. Jason leaned back on the couch, closer than before, his hand brushing against hers once more. This time, neither of them pulled away. There was no rush, no urgency, just a shared acknowledgement of something delicate, something forbidden, something that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Emma's thoughts raced, but she stayed calm on the outside, letting herself savor the moment without overthinking it. They were just sharing memories, watching old videos, and yet it felt like so much more. The air was thick with unspoken words, emotions that couldn't quite be named, and a longing that neither wanted to confront fully. As the night deepened, they both realized that something had shifted between them. A bond had formed, fragile, complicated but undeniably real. It wasn't about crossing lines or breaking rules, but acknowledging a connection that had quietly been growing for months. Emma caught herself smiling at Jason. Small, almost shy smile. He returned it, his eyes reflecting the same mixture of curiosity, nervousness, and unspoken desire. The moment was fleeting but permanent in its effect, leaving them both aware that nothing would ever be quite the same again. And then Jason spoke again, almost a whisper. I never thought it could feel like this. Emma's heart ached with the same truth. She nodded, unable to find words that fully captured the intensity of her feelings. "Neither did I," she said softly. "But maybe some things are meant to be felt even if we don't understand them." The room was quiet again, the videos over, the rain still softly falling outside. But inside, something had changed forever. A delicate tension, a fragile longing, a shared secret. It hung between them like an invisible thread. Subtle but impossible to ignore, Emma knew that the night was just the beginning. Questions lingered, boundaries were delicate, and emotions were raw. But in that moment, for the first time, she allowed herself to feel free. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the TV and the occasional patter of rain outside. Emma's heart was still racing from Jason's words, from the almost imperceptible closeness they had shared. She sat frozen for a moment, her mind spinning, thinking about what it meant that he had asked, that she wanted the same. There was fear in it, yes, but also an undeniable thrill, a heat she hadn't felt in years. The thought that Jason, her stepson, felt the same tension made her pulse quicken, and she realized that she no longer wanted to hold back. "Yes," she said softly, almost breathlessly. I think I do." Jason's eyes lit up with a small, cautious relief. He pressed play again, and the screen flickered to life, showing moments from old trips and memories she hadn't seen in years. But the videos became secondary to the presence beside her, the warmth of Jason leaning slightly closer. The way his shoulder almost brushed hers, the quiet rhythm of his breathing. They laughed softly at moments that once would have seemed insignificant. Emma tripping on a cobblestone street in Rome. Jason pointing out how Michael had tried to speak French and failed hilariously. The laughter was easy, natural, but beneath it was an undercurrent of something more. A tension that neither dared to name, but both understood. Every brush of hands, every accidental touch, made the air between them thick, almost tangible. Emma felt a strange combination of guilt and excitement. She reminded herself constantly, Jason was her stepson, Michael was her husband. And yet the feelings weren't just curiosity or simple affection. They were deeper, more complicated, a connection that thrilled and terrified her at the same time. She tried to focus on the memories, on the stories on the screen, but she couldn't ignore the pull of proximity, the heat of attraction that seemed to hum in the air around them. Jason, too, seemed aware of the shift. He laughed softly at a scene where Emma had fallen into a shallow fountain, his gaze flickering to her face, taking in her reaction. There was a softness in his eyes, a careful attention, and Emma felt herself leaning subtly toward him, almost instinctively. Neither spoke, yet a question lingered, suspended in the small space between them. Did she feel it too? As the videos continued, the room grew warmer, not from the heater or the TV, but from the closeness, the tension that neither of them could ignore. Emma's thoughts raced. She had spent years being careful, polite, composed, she had thought. She understood boundaries. And now everything felt fluid, uncertain, but exhilarating. She realized with a start that she didn't want to retreat, didn't want to ignore the way her pulse was racing, the way her chest tightened with longing. Jason shifted slightly, moving a little closer. Their knees touched accidentally, sending a jolt of electricity through both of them. Emma's breath caught, and she looked at him. truly looked at him, seeing the same mixture of curiosity, nervousness, and unspoken desire she had felt since the beginning of the night. He gave her a small, almost imperceptible smile, a silent acknowledgement of the tension between them. The videos ended, leaving the room dim and quiet, the screen glowing faintly. Jason hesitated, then whispered, I never thought it could feel like this. Emma felt her chest tighten. She wanted to reach out, to speak, say something that might explain the storm of feelings in her heart, but no words seemed adequate. She shook her head slightly, then whispered back, "Neither. Did one?" Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of honesty, of vulnerability she hadn't shared with anyone before. The silence that followed was comfortable in its own way, intimate without being overwhelming. They sat side by side, aware of each other, aware of the shared warmth and quiet tension. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, and the gentle light from the TV cast shadows across the room. Emma's hand brushed against Jason's again, slightly lingering, and this time neither moved away. There was a quiet understanding in the gesture, a mutual acknowledgement of the connection that had grown tonight. Jason's voice broke the silence, again low and hesitant. "Emma, I know we shouldn't, but can't ignore this." Emma's heart fluttered. She understood completely. She had felt the same pull, the same longing, and it was impossible to pretend otherwise. She reached for his hand lightly, almost shyly. "I know," she said softly. "I felt it too." The words hung in the air, delicate, fragile, and weighty. They didn't need to elaborate, didn't need to justify it. The acknowledgement itself was enough to shift the atmosphere. It wasn't about crossing lines or making choices impulsively. It was about recognizing something real, something that had quietly existed between them for months, maybe longer. Time seemed to stretch, the moments slow and heavy with meaning. Emma noticed the subtle details she hadn't before, the way Jason's fingers grazed hers, the warmth of his shoulder against hers, the quiet strength in his gaze that seemed to hold both fear and hope. She felt a deep tenderness for him, a desire not just for closeness, but for understanding, for trust, for a bond that went beyond words. Jason, sensing the same emotions, leaned a little closer. Their shoulders touched fully now, and Emma felt a warmth that was both thrilling and grounding. She rested her head lightly on the back of the couch, feeling the steady presence of Jason beside her. It was intimate, but not in a way that demanded anything more than what they were already giving each other. Attention, acknowledgement, and the quiet thrill of connection. "I never expected any of this," Jason whispered. "I didn't know I could feel like this about anyone here." Emma smiled softly. "Me neither. But maybe some connections aren't about rules or labels. Maybe they're just meant to be felt." Jason's gaze softened and he nodded. The quiet in the room was profound now. Not awkward, not tense, but full of a subtle electricity that made every second feel like it stretched and lingered. Emma felt her chest tighten with a combination of nervousness and relief. She wasn't alone in this. Jason felt it too, and they were both navigating it carefully, respectfully, tenderly. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the soft glow of the TV fade into black, listening to the last drops of rain against the window. Every so often, their hands brushed again, a gentle, fleeting contact that made their hearts skip. Each touch carried meaning, unspoken but undeniable. Emma realized that it wasn't about passion or impulsivity. It was about closeness, about the thrill of being understood, about the tenderness that could exist in a connection so complicated yet so real. Jason shifted slightly again, closer, still resting his head just a little nearer to hers. Emma felt the warmth of his presence, the subtle rise and fall of his chest, and the comfort of knowing they were experiencing this together. There was a strange mix of joy and longing, a quiet intensity that was almost painful in its beauty. "I've never felt this way Jason murmured. "Not with anyone. Not like this." Emma's heart ached with recognition. She squeezed his hand lightly, a small, reassuring gesture. "Me neither," she said softly, "and that's why this matters." The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversations, soft laughter, and long pauses where words weren't necessary. They shared memories, told small stories, and laughed about mistakes from the past. Each moment deepened the bond that had formed. Tonight, a fragile but undeniable connection that neither could ignore. Emma felt a strange peace amidst the chaos of emotions. She wasn't worried about the future, about what might or might not happen. For now, there was only this moment, this shared understanding, this quiet intimacy that existed between them. Jason's presence beside her was comforting, thrilling, and grounding all at once. The storm outside had finally passed, leaving the world washed clean and quiet. Inside, however, a different storm lingered, a storm of feelings, curiosity, of longing, of awareness that something important had begun. Tonight, Emma could feel it in every nerve, every heartbeat, every fleeting glance. Jason felt it too. She knew. And that knowledge made the connection feel even more profound. "I don't know what this means," Jason said finally, his voice quiet but steady. "But I don't want to forget tonight." Emma nodded, her own voice soft and reflective. "Neither do I, some moments. They're meant to change us, even if we don't understand how yet." They sat together in silence for a while, just existing in the shared warmth of the room, the quiet glow of the fading TV, and the knowledge that something had shifted between them. A bond had formed, delicate and complicated, but undeniably real. It wasn't about crossing boundaries recklessly. It was about recognizing a connection, feeling it fully, and trusting that they could navigate it together, carefully, honestly, and tenderly. The night was deep now, shadows stretching across the room. Emma felt a mix of emotions, relief, longing, excitement, and a quiet fear of the unknown. But above all, she felt hope. Hope that what had begun tonight was meaningful, rare, and precious. Jason's presence beside her was steady, reassuring, and thrilling. And she knew that whatever came next, they had shared something that would linger in both of their hearts forever. As the final drops of rain fell outside, Jason turned slightly toward her, and their hands found each other again. This time, neither moved away. The gesture wasn't about anything more than acknowledgement, respect, and mutual understanding, yet it carried a weight of emotion that neither could deny.